Server provisioning is preparing the server with the software and configuration that it needs before we actually go ahead and use that server. It's best to do this with a special provisioning tool such as Puppet, which we're going to look at later on in the screencast series. However, if your needs are very, very basic, you can actually provision your server with a simple shell script, and Vagrant makes this very, very easy. Let's begin by CDing into our first VM, and our Vagrant VM is actually still running from our previous screencast. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to run Vagrant Destroy. That will shut down our VM. And now that we've shut our VM down, we can actually open up our Vagrant file and make some changes here. So I'm going to do this actually near the top, although it doesn't really matter where you do it. So we're going to choose to configure our VM provisioning. So I'm going to say config.vm provision, and I can say we just want to do this with a shell script. And there are two ways we can write a shell script for provisioning. The first way is really simple. We just add an options hash after this, and we can say an inline script and then put our script in quotes. So we can just write the script echo hello world. I'll save and close this file. And now I can run Vagrant up. Now that we've told the Vagrant file that we have some certain provisioning that we want it to work with, every time we start up our Vagrant file, it will run that provisioning after it has started up the virtual machine. Notice right here at the end, we have running provisioner, shell, running an inline shell script, and right here at the bottom we have hello world. Now if you're worried about this red text here, standard in is not a TTY, don't worry about that too much. I'm not exactly sure why that appears, but from my research I found it's not an error, it's just a message saying that this shell script isn't actually running from a terminal, it's running inside our virtual machine or something like that. Anyway, don't worry, that's not an error. So as you can see, right here at the bottom we have the green text hello world printed out to the bottom. So this is our inline script being run just after our virtual machine is finished booting and doing the configurations that we set inside of our Vagrant file. Since we have this output here, I'll point out here that we have our port forwarding showing up right here and our mounting of shared folders down here. And then after that's all done, we have our provisioned output. Now, you can actually choose to rerun your server provisioning without completely restarting your virtual machine. So at any point, I can run Vagrant provision, and what it will do is just rerun the provisioning. So as you can see, that's much, much quicker. It will just run the provisioning. And this is, of course, the command you want to use whenever you want to just rerun the provisioning. No need to restart the entire server. So now that we've run our provisioning with an inline script, let me go ahead and open up our Vagrant file. And instead of running an inline script, let's go ahead and give it a path. When we give it a path like this, this is the path to the provisioning script. So I'm just going to write a provision.sh script and we'll just put it in the current directory. So now I'll save our Vagrant file and now we have to write that script. So I'll open a provision.sh file and let's do this. Let's echo this is our provisioning script, and then down below I can run apt-get install vim and we'll give it the -y flag so that it won't ask us to confirm that we really do want to install vim. You may recall from an earlier screencast when we tried to open up Vim on our virtual machine, Vim wasn't installed. So this is the command we would use at the command line within our virtual machine to go ahead and install Vim. So I can just put this in our provisioning script and it should install Vim when we boot up the machine. So I can save and close this, and now let's just run Vagrant provision. So notice that we first get a line here that says this is our provisioning script. And then we get the output here from our apt-get command. Now, if you've run apt-get before from an Ubuntu machine, this output should look familiar. We begin by reading package lists, etc., etc. Down here, it's actually getting some different archives. And all of this is actually going to be installing Vim for us. All right, so there we go. Now that that has completed, we can run Vagrant SSH to get a secure shell into our virtual machine. And now we can make sure that this provision script actually worked by running which vim. And as you can see, we now have the Vim editor installed on our virtual machine. So if you have very, very simple needs for your virtual machine, you can use a shell script like this for provisioning. However, I'm guessing that you're going to want to do more complex things with your virtual machine than what I've just shown you here. So in the next screencast, we're going to begin a look at Puppet, which is a much more heavy-duty server provisioning tool.